Hi everyone, Quiveen here from the comfort of my kitchen. In today's video, we are going to be looking at Venus. In a recent video, when we were taking an overview of March, I pointed out Venus visible at sunset in the early part of March, really close to Mercury. And once we came around to the end of March, I showed Venus at sunrise after coming around to the other side of the sun. There we go. So Venus at the moment, from around the 18th to the 21st or so, depending on where you are on the planet, we're looking at the 18th here. Venus is going to be visible at sunset. It's a little tricky. Venus is quite low to the horizon, so we can see here it's just about visible above these hills. If your horizon is slightly clearer, then of course you'll be able to see Venus brighter and lower in the sky. But of course, the atmosphere will begin to make Venus look fainter. The atmosphere will extinct Venus as Venus gets very low to the horizon. So that's Venus there in the evening on the 18th. We'll go through the night and we'll turn from the western sunset there all the way round to the east. We are starting with our view from the city in terms of the amount of light pollution. But we can see that this eastern view here from Grains in France, it's incredibly clear. The eastern horizon has nothing on it. So this is, a slightly elevated position, a few, some number of meters up from sea level, with essentially nothing blocking the easterly view. Even a lot of the other horizons compared to the western one, a lot of the other horizons are even clearer. Here's Venus in the morning on the 19th. So we saw Venus setting with the sun and coming up with the sunrise here. It's not really that Venus has moved from one side of the sun to the other. It's more a case of Venus being so far from the sun, thanks to the inclination of its orbit, that we're able to see Venus at sunset and at sunrise. In fact, for two different observers on two different parts of the Earth, one of them could be looking at Venus at sunset, while the other observes Venus at sunrise. So it's not just that Venus moves from one side of the sun to the other in the space of a night. Of course, it doesn't. Venus is visible at sunset and at sunrise at the same time. And that's because of Venus's position relative to the sun. So we can see there way above it. Now, of course, the sun is really far away. Venus is much closer to us. So there's a little bit of an optical illusion going on here. But Venus is significantly above us, at least. We are also slightly inclined. Our orbit doesn't exactly match the ecliptic. All of the planets have a little bit of variation. We generally follow the ecliptic, but there is usually some amount of deviation. It's very similar to planets rotating. The poles of a planet normally point north-south. But in the case of the Earth, we're tilted over 20 odd degrees. In the case of Uranus, it's completely on its side. In the case of Venus, it's upside down, or at least seems to be upside down. So I'll get the ecliptic here, just so we can see that Saturn is, in fact, quite close to the ecliptic. It's going off there at an angle. Mercury there is quite close to the ecliptic as well. But there are other lines of the ecliptic. I can go with the, not the one of this date, but of the epoch, which should look pretty much the same, but with fewer little tick marks on it. So we can see that Venus there appears quite high off the ecliptic. We can see that it comes around there lining up with the ecliptic when it was at its greatest elongation. So the angle of Venus's inclination and the angle of the Earth's inclination are at play here. And it adds up to put Venus in this, pretty much perfect position to observe. Really around here on the 20th is the perfect one. But we'll hop back to the 19th just to show that Venus was visible at sunrise on the morning of the 19th. It will continue to be visible just barely, a little harder on the 19th than it was on the 18th. And on the 18th, it was already getting pretty hard to observe Venus from here in Ireland. It will be quite low. And with these mountains that we see here, they're going to get in the way at least a little bit. We will be able to, there we go. So Venus is still visible above those mountains. We can go to the zero horizon to show Venus staying visible for significantly longer. You know, it would stay visible way down to here. We needed that clear view to the east, back over in this direction. We needed that clear view to catch Venus just as it was rising on the 19th. That'll get easier and easier as we move through the 20th through to the 21st and forward, of course, into the year as Venus continues to get further and further to its western elongation when we see it in the morning. So we'll go to that zero horizon, but hopefully I will get a chance to show what it might look like from some other locations as well. Just because from here in Ireland, of course, the angle, we're pretty high up on the planet, so the angle at which we see things rising and setting can be a little bit steep. It's the zero horizon, and there we go. So that'll let us see Venus a little bit longer, just like that. So this is really not too bad. If you've got a clear enough view to the west, Venus should look really quite obvious. We can see there, it's nice and bright even against that glow of sunset. If we were out in the countryside, of course, it would be even better. So we'll head out to the countryside. Here we go. So there's Venus and Mercury. So Mercury, of course, pretty much impossible to see there, even though I think it is higher above the horizon. Yeah, it's higher above the horizon than Venus, but it's just so much fainter. Venus is that much brighter than Mercury. That Mercury there is pretty much not visible at all. Venus is so much brighter, and it has that height above the sun that we saw when we were looking at it during the day. Moving the whole way through the night here, we can see that at this particular point of the month, the moon is pretty much in Scorpius, so it's going to block out a lot of the glow of the Milky Way. That will get easier as we move out of March and into April. Of course, we have the solar eclipse, the partial solar eclipse, coming up at the end of the month. That only happens during the new moon, so the sky will be nice and dark and the Milky Way will start to get a bit more visible early in the morning, just before sunrise. So there's Venus again in the morning on the 20th, still absolutely visible in a zero horizon. I'll go through this a little faster. In a zero horizon, I do believe Venus would still be visible at sunset from Ireland on the 20th, but probably only with a zero horizon. So we'll go through it a little bit slower. I kept overshooting it, trying to go quickly. So there we go. Yeah, just about on the 20th, Venus still visible there as the sun is going down, and even on the 21st. And of course, it would be visible in the morning of the 21st and getting easier and easier moving forward. So we'll go very quickly around to sunrise there. We'll move forward a little bit in time. We can see Venus there only getting further and further out from the sun. Mercury and Saturn will join just underneath Venus once we get a little bit later into April as well. So we'll go a little bit closer to the equator, and from the equator, this is close enough. From the equator, this absolutely continues to work fine. We can see Venus there nice and clearly in the east. It's so high above. By the time we're into April there, the 1st of April, we can see Mercury and Saturn there as well. From the equator, that would be pretty tricky to do from here in Ireland. Moving back to the dates of the double Venus, and we can see that we're losing Mercury and Saturn. In fact, losing Venus there, it's just about there, but it's very, very difficult to see because it is pretty much above the sun. So the angle that we're seeing Venus at from here in Ireland makes it a little bit easier. So yeah, there we go. We need to move a little bit forward again, past the date where it's visible in the evening and in the morning. We'll see that if we swing around, and I'll be careful not to go too quickly this time. We'll swing around to the west here, and we can see the glow of the Milky Way there. This is with the atmosphere turned off, so that's why the moon isn't blocking out the glow of the Milky Way quite as much. There comes the sun with Mercury and Venus. We'll go a little bit faster. And we can see there, Venus is going under the horizon as the sun goes down. So from the equator, this isn't going to be visible. And if we very briefly and quickly go far into the southern hemisphere, even though the angle is comparable. So there will be an angle. We can see here that Venus goes under the horizon well before the sun, and the inverse would happen in the morning. If we come around quickly, of course, with the atmosphere off, the timing doesn't matter too much. Yeah, here we go. So Saturn's going to be nice and clearly visible from the southern hemisphere in the morning, but they're not going to get Venus the way that we will here in Ireland. So this is really a northern hemisphere phenomenon because Venus is north of the sun, as we can see here. We're going to keep seeing it above the horizon from the northern hemisphere at sunset and sunrise, as long as your horizon is clear. Right through till about the 21st. You'll certainly see it in the morning of the 21st. You'd need a very clear horizon to see it in the evening of the 21st. It is going to look better and better in the morning over the coming months because Mercury and Saturn will join Venus. But just for the next couple of days, you've got the chance to see Venus twice, sunset and sunrise. So I hope you get a chance to see Venus at least one of those times, even if you don't get to see it at sunset and at sunrise. I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do like it. And if you enjoy this kind of content, then you could subscribe to this YouTube channel as well. You can also read some of this information if you head to my website, queeveenscontent.ie. So thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you back here next time.